Let me know when we're ready. Oh, are we recording? Oh, okay, we don't have to, normally it says recording in progress, but okay, no, that's fine. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to this meeting, this emergency meeting of Biggleswade Town Council. A reminder that this is a, excuse me, this is a formal meeting. Members of the public will be given an opportunity to speak during public open session, but not other times. The meeting's being filmed, and by being present, attendees are deemed to have consented to be filmed and to the use of those images and sound recordings. Attendees should not disclose any personal information related to individuals, as that would infringe the data protection rights of that individual. Item 1, apologies for absence. I have apologies from Councillor Woodhead, Councillor Russell, and I think Councillor Alban is online. Am I right in thinking? Yes, okay. Do we have any more apologies? No, okay. Declarations of interest. We only have one agenda item. Does anybody have any interests, pecuniary or otherwise, in that item? No, okay. Item 3, public open session. To adjourn for a period of up to 15 minutes to allow members of the public to put questions or to address the council pertaining to matters listed on the agenda. So do we have anybody online? No. Okay. Item 4, planning applications. So we have one to consider, and this is land north of Biggleswade. This is an outline planning application for 416 houses to the north of Furzenhall Road. So where we left this last time was we moved into exempt session at the last council, a couple of council meetings ago, to discuss this. We decided to proceed by making clear to Central Bedfordshire Council that we object and that we're informing, we are engaging transport consultants in order to come up with a response. That response has been shared with members. It has included our transport consultants who have been over this in detail. Does anybody have any comments? Councillor Bond.
This is very important.
Your microphone, please.
This is a very important application. I'd like to be moved that we actually take it to exempt session, because I'd like to be able to be very frank about what we have to do about here. So I'd really like to move into exempt session. Otherwise, I don't think we'll be able to discuss it in its entirety.
Okay. I mean, that is a proposal. Is there a seconder for moving into exempt session? There is a seconder. Okay. We're not going to take a vote on that just yet. Are there any comments on whether or not we move into exempt session? I have one from the chair. We need to make a decision tonight. They may be extending, it may be possible that the window for responses has been extended. I don't know whether it has, but if it has, we still need to be able to influence, the officers who are making a decision. And by that, I mean, they are going to be coming to a decision soon, I suspect, and we want the opportunity for them to be able to read, digest what we have to say, and for them to be able to reach their professional opinion. So in my opinion, the sooner we do that, the better, and we shouldn't delay much longer. Councillor Knight.
Thank you. Apologies for putting the clerk on the spot. I think the clerk is probably the most aware of the rules and circumstances under which we can take something as exempt. Could you please advise us?
Microphone, please.
Sorry.
That's all right.
Yeah, I would try and focus on the area around commerciality, and if we were going to be talking about sensitive financial issues. If we believe that to be the case, then I think we can move to exempt if we believe it to be commercially sensitive.
Yeah, I'm going to come to Councillor Foster, then Councillor Bond.
I think it's appropriate for us to do what we can, consider what we can in the public domain, and if there are other elements that are commercially sensitive, then we go into exempt. But I don't think it's right to put everything straight into exempt.
Thank you, Councillor Foster. Councillor Bond.
When we move into exempt, there's no reason we can't then move out of exempt. It's not exactly a once in and not coming back.
Okay. No, I'm aware of that, but I'm also aware that we can't keep jumping in and out of exempt. Councillor Foster, did you want to comment?
I think the same applies. We could go into exempt if there was a particular commercial issue that we needed to discuss, but I think I appreciate Councillor Bond's argument, but I think it should be the other way, rather than go into exempt and then come out of it, rather than the other way.
Okay, so we have a proposal which has been seconded, which is essentially to move straight into exempt session. If that motion falls, then we carry on in open session until such a time as a similar motion may or may not be moved as the debate goes on. Okay, so I mean, we're going to I'm going to put it to the vote now to move into exempt session immediately. So all those in favour of that proposal, please show. 3. All those against that proposal. Right. So we remain in open session for the time being. If I come back to what I said before, we have something which was circulated quite late last night, which came from our transport consultants and from me. Are there any comments on this, Councillor?
Obviously, I saw your document late last night. I've read it. I would just like to be able to say to colleagues, this is not, I've had a lot of experience in doing planning applications. I'm a member of DMC. I also have been involved in stuff which I'd say, I wouldn't say behind the scenes, but I know how things work and how credibility is. Without giving an exact example, recently there was a vote on a very important item for us, and it all boiled down to the fact is that those who responded were regarded as being amateurs, and they had what they produced was given almost zero weight. Now, in the past, on this application, we've had a very good response from our transport consultant, and that actually has real weight. If it goes to DMC, it has weight. Well, regardless how clever we are and amazingly talented we are in producing a report, the fact is it comes from us rather than a professional transport consultant gives it almost no weight. We need to be able to argue at DMC. We've gone so far on this application, and to lose it for the sake of a penny's worth of tar is not right. Now, quickly, the Mayor asked earlier about the extension. I have secured an extension to this application. It will not be heard. It will not be heard at DMC until January at the earliest. I've also got an assurance that we have an extension, and what we're going for, we have council on the 11th of January. And if we ask the transport consultant today to be able to go and produce a report in obviously his credibility and his response, as good as we can to be able to respond to this application, then we've got the opportunity of discussing it at council on the 11th. And obviously, if we can get it earlier, well and good. But that is because DMC is not until the end of January. So we have time, because that report would have to then go, what we don't want to do is get something in the last minute that only gets the late sheet. What we want to do, that report to do, is to go back to the two really capable highway officers we have as development management, and they will give it a very good analytical response, and they will take it on board. They will listen to the points we make from our transport consultant. They'll take them on board, and we need to give them time to be able to digest them and maybe ask questions as a result of it. So really, I would like to move that we look at asking the transport consultant to produce his own report, and we shouldn't be trying to influence it. When I read this report reads, planning application, Biggleswade Town Council strongly objects. This is literally like what we do as an accompanying thing that goes with a planning application. This really reads Town Council, it doesn't read transport consultant. And if we want to have a chance of being able to, we've gone so far, we're putting so many hours. I mean, when I was elected as CBC councillor, this is one of the things I canvassed on. It's important that we don't slip up at the last minute. We want to give the transport consultant the best opportunity. And I would like to move that we actually do ask the transport consultant to actually look at the report, look at the latest transport assessment from Hallam, and actually produce a proper response, which we can then consider as a council.
Okay. So we have in a moment, Councillor North. So the proposal would be to take this, to go to the transport consultant, ask them to write a report based on the transport assessment, and then for it to come back to council. Yes. Okay. Is there a seconder for that proposal? There is. Can I say from the chair that whilst the introduction to this does read as though it is written as a planning application, as a response to a normal planning application. The entirety of this work, however it may be presented, is the work of the transport consultant, in that he has read every single line, has taken out or has added an enormous amount of content, and is comfortable with everything that we're saying here. So if I may say from the chair, we can commission the transport consultant to copy and paste 80% of this into another document, but it's a 10-minute job and it could be done tomorrow morning. We're not going to get anything particularly new from them. And I say that as the person who's been liaising with them. Councillor North was next.
Yeah, so what you just said is what I was going to say, that don't we have this already in effect? And as you say, within 10 minutes, it can be just reformatted and presented. And I agree with the point made by Councillor Bond that it's better coming, probably would be better coming under the heading of a professional transport consultant, but we have that already. And that can be done very, very quickly. We don't need to wait till January, because I would pick up another point that you made, Mr. Mayor, that we need to get in as soon as possible. And yes, you're talking about giving them time to respond and to discuss it. Fine. Well, let's get in quickly and get on with that process. I don't see any reason to delay the whole thing by over a month now we're talking about. Let's get on with it.
Yeah, Councillor Ramsey.
I'm glad to hear you say that it won't take the consultants very long, because I'm very firmly of the opinion that it's not always how things are, it is how they appear to be. And if we have this done, if you like, on their headed paper and with all their qualifications and all that goes with it, I do think it will be taken more, I know it shouldn't, but I think it will be taken a lot more seriously, because it will be looked at as a professional document. Knowing how sometimes they deliberately choose to disregard Town Council, I think it's essential that we do have it as a professional document to send it through. If it only takes them 10 minutes, that's well and good, because they'll only charge us for 10 minutes. But it does need to go through as a professional, independent document, as far as I'm concerned. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ramsey. Councillor Strawn.
I very much echo the points that I think it's essential that we have it presented professionally by transport consultants. I think you've done an excellent job, Mr. Mayor, by the way. I thought it was absolutely brilliant and it read, but in the circumstances that we've got the extension of time, and I hope that's been confirmed in writing to us, so that we've got that, so there's no going back by Central Beds or anybody else on that. But I think it's essential that we have it presented in a professional sense, and we can submit the application, or the transport consultants can submit the application. The money, to a certain extent, may be less relevant than the fact that we've got to get it done professionally, and that's nothing against the way that what you've done here. It's just the fact that the point Councillor Bond made is that seeing the professional's name on the paper will add credence to our objection, and I think that is absolutely essential. There are other observations I might make on little points that might be taken into account on the document, however excellent it may be, but I do think it's absolutely essential we get it dealt with by the professionals.
Understood. In a moment, Councillor Bond. Councillor Foster's signalling first. Do you want to go on, Councillor Foster? I'll respond.
I'm just about to just would say, essentially, I would be duplicating everything that Councillor Strawn has just said. I think it's absolutely right. It's an excellent piece of work. But I think I'm sort of sensing that the sort of feeling is that it needs to be come from the transport consultant rather than from us. Whether we agree or not, I respect Councillor Bond's opinion on it.
Okay, I'll take you both in a moment. Go ahead.
Thank you. Maybe I need to confirm that obviously there's a bit of confusion regarding the timescales we have. The document might say we have until the 5th. We don't. Town Council has 28 days to respond to planning applications when everyone else has 21. That is the norm. Regardless of the document you see, that is actually what the situation is. In this situation, because it's got a delay of DMC, the way DMC works is the case officer will bring together all the information to produce the officer's report. Now, that is always targeted towards when DMC is happening. So we know that's happening towards the end of January. So the case officer will be putting together the information, most likely middle of January. And then what there will always be, the final things of any objections. That's why if there are going to be any more objections from colleagues or members of the public, which will go through, any stuff which comes in after the officer's report appears on the late sheet. If suddenly, let's say, another town council sends in a response and says, actually, they support Biggleswade Town Council in its objective or whatever, then, and it missed the deadline, that stuff comes on the late sheet. The late sheet is published 5 o'clock the night before of DMC. So it means it's always up to date. There is never a situation it can't be considered. But by getting in earlier, we get it considered by the people who really matter, which are the transport consultants, and also the really, honestly, I have a lot of confidence in them, and I sit in DMC and listen to them, to really first class central beds development management highways officers who are really first class. I can't say anything else. So really, we have enough time to get this right. If it is only going to be a few minutes work, well and good, but we need to give the remit to the transport consultants to do basically an A+ task on this, because this is our last bash at this one.
Councillor Pullinger.
Thank you. So I accept the argument that actually it will look better if it comes as a professional report from the transport consultant. I think my concern is, I do have a concern around delaying though, and delaying the decision beyond tonight. So what I would like to see is that we agree to get the report produced professionally, but we also agree tonight that we are strongly objecting on the same grounds as we previously objected, essentially, and that once the report is available, that we submit the objection. I don't see any value in us waiting until the 12th of January to consider it again, when we know we want to strongly object. We know that the main reasons and the main evidence that we're providing is around the transport report. And as others have said, they are the professionals, not us. So why should we need to reconsider that report when we know the bulk of it is what's contained in this document? And so we can, once they've produced that professional report, which supports our objection, we're in a position to submit it.
Thank you, Councillor Pullinger. In a moment, Councillor Bond, I'm going to speak this time. So just to confirm, sorry, I'm not, it's right. So it is definitely the case that were something to come from our transport consultants. Part of the reason I think we've had the success that we've had up until now is because they've been prepared to put their name to work, and their documents are featuring on the planning portal. I spoke to the transport consultant this afternoon, and he confirmed that he's happy to take that approach with if it is the will of council, and it seems probably to be the case, that he is happy to put his name to the detailed analysis which is in this in the document that's in front of us. And the only thing I would say is there has been a few bits added to it to make it, particularly at the top, for example, things like the town council strongly objects to this. You know, he didn't write that, I added that bit, but we know where his work is and what he's happy to put his name to. As a result, we could have that very quickly, I hope, in the first half of tomorrow. In terms of whether there's anything else for the transport consultant to consider, he's been through the whole transport assessment. He's compared parts of it back to the old transport assessment. You can see, if you've read the report, that he's looked through the detailed modelling, which someone like me wouldn't know where to start. And all of that is reflected in this document. So if we were to go with the proposal, which is a sound proposal, Councillor Pullinger is right that we don't have to wait at all. We could have this ready at the very latest on Monday morning, in a format presented by the consultant, which could accompany then another response from the town council saying the town council strongly objects to this planning application, high-level bullet points around highways, refer to the transport consultant's detailed analysis. That would be an option, and we could have that very early next week. Councillor Bond.
I really don't see why we're rushing. We need to give the man the best opportunity, and a matter of few more days. We already have more than Monday. Monday's the 5th, which is what we actually have a week plus a 5th, even before our extension. So we should put this back to consultant. We shouldn't pressurize him. We want to give him the opportunity to do the best job he can. Yes, I'm really impressed the amount of work that's gone into this. It's a great report, but the fact is, it's our last chance to get this right. And it really has to be from the transport consultant to give it the weight. What we don't want is to turn around and say, actually, it wasn't by him. And that's what we're really saying. It has to be the work of the transport consultant. Yes, he's putting his name to it. It's his professional pride. It's his profession. That's what we need to do. So I would like to be able to move that we send it to the transport consultant to do the best job he can based on the information he has.
We'll come back to the proposal in a moment. There are further comments.
Thank you. So I think the report's very good. I know there's been some iteration today by email, so there's a few revisions that haven't made it into this draft. So I wonder if it is reasonable that we resolve to ask the transport consultant to essentially formally review this and to submit a report in their own professional name. I suspect that probably needs to then come back to council to be formally approved. The next council meeting is on the 13th of December. So I guess my question is that soon enough? It doesn't seem too bad to me. So potentially, if that final report came to full council on the 13th, we could then formally resolve to submit that as part of our objection.
We could. Alternatively, in a moment, Councillor Thomas, we could, alternatively, having worked with the transport consultant, there is nothing further to add. There isn't anything further to add. And yes, the timelines have been tight, but actually it was 9 days ago that we resolved to engage the transport consultant. We did. 9 days is a long time. It's nearly, 200 hours. We didn't use all of those 200 hours, but there's been plenty of time for him to consider this. We could resolve to trust their better judgment, given that it's not going to change, the content's not going to change, and allow him to submit, and simply to circulate what he feels is his view of the transport assessment. Because when it comes to council, none of us are going to change it anyway. So, it's not in the interest of time or anything like that. It's just, what's the point? Let's get on with it. Councillor Thomas, no. Councillor Thomas.
Thank you. I was actually going to say exactly what you said. What's stopping is letting them go ahead with this now. There isn't anything really. We're not going to add anything to it. We just said we're not the experts. They're going to do it. They're going to put it in their own headed paper. Who are we to change it? And that's what gives us the weight for this argument. I think we should just do it now.
Okay. Councillor Strawn, then Councillor Bond.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I agree, let the transport consultants get on with it, but there are just a couple of observations that I had on the document, which may be worth making, and other people may do it. They're very minor, but if we're sending it back to the transport consultant, it might just be helpful observations. They may not be helpful observations, but I'd like to have the opportunity to make them.
Please.
When do you want those made, if at all?
Well, do you have them now?
Yes, it's just frankly, there's reference to Furzenhall Road in inadequate access. On the report here, I didn't notice much comment about the junction of Potton Road, Furzenhall Road, and the virtual crossroads that there is there, because I thought that is actually quite important in terms of the access. And again, the other one is the Junction Drove Road, London Road, which in terms of description, Eagle Farm Road equally performs just as much part of that junction. And it's mentioned, but it's not necessarily highlighted in the way that it might assist, in that I think Eagle Farm Road and the traffic down Eagle Farm Road is essential to the overall consideration there. But those are just my observations, which I'll bow to transport consultant's opinion, but I think it's just helpful if we've got observations like that might make it clearer if he's at least aware of them.
Thank you, Councillor Strawn. We can obviously include that in any comment back to the transport consultant. Councillor Bond, would you like to explain what your proposal is?
I'd like to modify it slightly in relation to what Councillor Knight was saying, which I think is a very good idea. If we can actually discuss this at next council in December, I've been assured from today's conversation that it won't take very long for the transport consultant to finish his report. And so I suggest what we do, we put the work towards the transport consultant and we put it on the agenda for to be discussed as council on the 12th or 13th? 13th. And we can make a decision then. It's only a day past the 28 days, but we've already been given an extension in the case, so we're well within our time. It won't make any difference. So we can actually make our proper decision then rather than tonight.
Councillor Pullinger.
Could I request that Councillor Bond considers splitting it into two proposals, one around the referring to the transport consultants to produce a professional report, which I think has widespread support, and a separate one where we consider the timing of how and when we respond formally to CBC, because I think that's where there's potentially some contention that we might want to further discuss.
We could probably take the first vote quite quickly, actually, and we can still open for discussion on the second. Depends what Councillor Bond wants to do.
A vote on the first one then.
Yeah, okay. Does anybody have any comment before we enter into that vote? So just to be clear what we're voting on. There's a two-part proposal. The first part is that we go back to the transport consultants, asking them to take the content that they've provided us with and put it into a report in a style that they're comfortable with, that they have done numerous times for numerous councils in the past. So that is the first part of the proposal. In a moment, if I may just clarify both parts first, because that might help. So that is the first part of the proposal, and to do that, to send that email, I can send that email this evening. The second part of the proposal then is whether that comes, and a separate vote will be on the timelines for that coming back to council, whether it comes back to council, whether it's an item for consideration or for information, and we can have that proposal made slightly clearer when we get to that stage of the vote. So does anybody need any clarity on that? Councillor Strawn.
Yes. On the point of view of this transport consultant, should we specify that the report is for submission to the council with our objection? And I think it's important we just make clear to the transport consultant that it's going to be submitted to with the objection. That
we will submit a objection alongside it as the town council.
Well, I want to just make sure that it's clear that the transport document is actually submitted to Central Beds Council, because that's not spelled out in words of one syllable in the proposal.
Okay, I mean, yeah. So the consultant's well aware of where the document will go. He will provide. We've commissioned the consultant to do some work. He gives that work to us. It's up to us how we take that document and when we put it in front of Central Beds and in what format and what it's accompanied with. What we're asking the consultant to do is still the same question, which is take the parts of the report that's already been provided and the work that they've already done and put it in their usual format. That is the first vote. I'm going to come round. Councillor Foster, Councillor Knight and Councillor Bond.
So for clarification, then we go to the transport consultant, they produce the document. Are they in a position to submit that report to Central Beds on our behalf without, and we then, so that it has to be that it goes through from them to us and we submit?
Correct. Yes. And I spoke to the consultant about this today, and he said that is the way that it would usually work. They provide the work for the person that they are commissioned by.
And that's really what I was going to say. My assumption is that we would receive the report, and if we're comfortable with it, we would then attach it as an attachment to our letter of objection.
Yeah, which we will come out in more detail in the second part of the vote. But the first part is still the same, where we ask the consultants to take the work and put it into their usual format as a report. Councillor Bond.
Yes, that's the bulk of what we're doing, but we're also asking them to make sure, because they have a bit more time, to make sure that the report is right, because we have still a few more days for them to actually look at this closely. As you said, it's been quite time scale's been a bit tight. We're not just asking them to repackage what they have there. We ask them to look at what they've got and actually finish off the report. If it requires any amendments.
No,
we're not asking. We're not going to basically ask them just to package that up. Because what's the point in using the time we have? They're
Councillor Bond,
professionals.
that is the whole
No, that's
point
not-
that Councillor Pullinger made, excuse me. That is the entire point that Councillor Pullinger made, that we take the vote separately so that we can determine how much time they then choose to take. Okay, Councillor Pullinger.
I think the point is that we are asking them, I believe you're wanting them to submit to us a full report, having fully considered the entire transport assessment and all relevant information, and to submit that to us,
Absolutely.
Right,
Yeah.
in which case they will do that. And that may well be them just repackaging what they've got because they are confident they've already done all the work.
Right, okay, so the proposal is to go to the transport consultants and ask them to provide a report on the applicant's transport assessment as submitted, and for that report to come back to the town council when it's done. By come back, I mean they send it to us.
They send it to us, yeah.
Okay, all those in favour, can we just be very careful with how that's minuted, please? Thank you, Funda. I get a baptism of fire for you here this evening. All those in favour of that proposal? Right, thank you, that's unanimous. What we now need to discuss is around the timelines, because the consultant has been through the transport assessment and all of the work that they've done before, building on the analysis that they've already carried out, that carries over to this transport assessment, and they've provided us with their professional view of this transport, of the applicant's transport assessment. It just so happens that that has been taken and written in a format that would normally be, similar to those that we put in normally as a response, but we don't want to do that this time because we want the report to be separate. The question now is, what timelines are we asking the consultant to work to? And if I may say from the chair, I don't think it will take them very long to put the report together because the work is already done. Councillor Pullinger.
Okay, so I think that the top couple of paragraphs up until the item 4, exaggeration of site sustainability, is essentially what should be our written objection to CVC. We should specifically reference the fact that the transport consultant has prepared a report which is attached as part of that. And I don't know the members' views, but whether we should also include the reduction in public rights of way and disruption to irreplaceable archaeology, or whether those aspects have been resolved since the original application. But essentially, I would propose that we, on receipt of the report from the transport consultant, that we subject our objection on these lines straight away, without it requiring to come back to council.
Okay, thank you. So just to yes,
I thought Councillor Bond had already made the proposal in the first part, so that proposal can't be taken at the moment until Councillor Bond's been.
Fine. Okay, so Councillor Bond, do you want to just restate what the second part of your proposal then? So we've already discussed about asking the transport consultants to do work and to come back to us. Councillor Pullinger's made a suggestion, but would you like to just reiterate what your actual proposal was?
We need to be able to consider, as town council, the transport consultant is looking at specifically the transport issues. There is a lot more to that planning application, as Councillor Pullinger was saying, archaeology, there is rights of way. And I've already been looking at the responses coming in from officers. There's actually only one internal, as of when I looked earlier today, there's only been one extra response to this consultation from internally from CBC, which obviously goes onto the website. So if we come to, obviously we'll have the transport consultant's report. We'll also be able to have a proper debate about what we actually want to include in our response as a town council's objection based on all these areas, because the highways is only one part of this, rights of way, as I was saying. And there's also other bits which is coming up. There's also LTN 120. There's also the cycling routes. The fact is the government have got rules that there's also now active Travel England, which wasn't a consultee before.
Councillor Bond, sorry. I was looking at what the proposal is.
What I'm proposing for,
You can
that we actually
explain
be
it in
able
a
to,
moment.
that we bring this back to next council and decide on our objection and the detail of our objection in our debate.
Okay, so your proposal is for the whatever the transport consultants come up with to come back to the next council meeting and for us to add anything on top of that we want to.
Exactly.
Okay, is there a seconder for that proposal? Yes, I'm seeing Councillor Strawn's hand raised. Are you seconding that, Councillor Strawn? You are. Okay, if I might just make a comment from the chair, my understanding is that Rights of Way and Archaeology have already come back on this at the time of the last consultation. They've made up their mind and they're not objecting. The only Central Beds department that has an outstanding objection is Highways. Councillor Knight, then Councillor
So
Strawn.
looking at timescales then, so the papers for the next council meeting have to go out on Thursday, a week away. So it doesn't seem unreasonable to expect the traffic consultants to have completed their work. As soon as that's complete, it would be fantastic if that could be shared with members. And then for the papers to go out on Thursday for the following council meeting on the 13th of December for us to consider our covering note essentially, and which points we want to draw from that final report to send to Central Beds. It seems like the most appropriate way of doing that.
Okay.
So I support that.
So that would be the transport consultants' work would come back to us and we'd submit our own objection alongside that. Okay, well that was part of the proposal anyway, which has been seconded. Okay, further comments, Councillor Pullinger.
Okay, I mean, if members are not ready to debate, I guess, the other aspects around public rights of way, archaeology, etc., then I think there is some sense in waiting until the 13th. What I would say in light of your comments, Mr. Mayor, is that although the officers at Central Beds have made their view on archaeology and public rights of way, the ultimate decision will be at DMC. So if we still object on those grounds, we should still include that within our objection that goes to the members of DMC to be aware that we are still objecting to those things. Although it wasn't a formal proposal at my stage, because obviously there's one on the table, I would actually now support Councillor Bond's proposal.
Okay, further comments? None. So the proposal is, we already have the first part of the proposal related to the transport consultants' work coming back. We ask then that this agenda item comes to council meeting on the 13th of December, along with the transport consultants' work, in order for us then to agree our final wording to go to Central Beds and how that's sent. Is that a fair summary of the proposal? Yes. Okay. Are there any last comments? No. All those in favour of the proposal, please show. Any against? Then that's carried. Thank you. Oh no, sorry. Whoa, sorry, we've got other business to attend to. Public open session, item 5. No one? Exempt items. Oh, I forgot to ask whether we wanted to move into exempt session, but I think that ship has sailed now. So the meeting's closed.